Hey everyone, it's Hailey, and today I'm going to be talking about some hyped up books that I have read recently and whether I think they lived up to that hype or not. So this is my second of my 3 recent reads video, like summer reading wrap-ups that I'm doing. So the first one was specifically focused on adult romance books. So if you missed that, I will have it linked down below so you guys can check it out. And then this next one obviously is some like hyped up books, but they also kind of happen to all be out of my comfort zone. And then the one after that will be YA books that I've read. But here, I've got a lot of books, and all of these have been pretty hyped up for one reason or another, except for one of them. But I felt like this was kind of the best way to do this video, rather than just saying it was like out of my comfort zone reads or just adult books. I felt like most of them are like really hyped up, and that's kind of why I read them. So that's what I decided to go with. So that's just what we're rolling with today. So yeah, we've got a little bit of everything here, and definitely all of them are a little bit different than what I normally would read. But I've kind of been branching out with what I've been reading, and it's been really great. And I mean, with these, it kind of was ups and downs, but overall, I think it went pretty well. So I just wanted to take a second to thank the sponsor for today's video, Scentbird. I love changing up my fragrance, and I love Scentbird because it allows me to do that, but it also has allowed me to find like my signature scent that I really enjoy. So you get like a large sample of it, and you can try out a fragrance before committing to a whole bottle. It's awesome. I said that really forcefully, but like honestly, I have found I really love the Marc Jacobs Daisy Oh So Sweet. That has been my favorite, and I did indeed go and buy a full bottle after getting some from Scentbird. So to explain more about what Scentbird is, it is a fragrance subscription service. So you can pick out new fragrances that you would like to try every single month, and the price is like so much cheaper than going and buying a new bottle, and the sizes of the trials are so much larger than a regular perfume sample. And by that I mean you get a 30-day supply, so you get to try out the fragrance for a full month. But if you didn't feel like trying out something new, then you can always skip a month with no penalties. If you don't know where to start, they also offer a quiz that will help you to find a scent that works for you. With the 2 weddings that I've had this year and moving away from home, I'm constantly traveling, and I am constantly like on the go. And I love the fact that these vials are so handy. Like, it's even better than a full perfume bottle because it's a small size that you can just easily like throw in your bag and have with you on the go. So basically it's this little kind of capsule thing that twists up like a lipstick or even a glue stick, but then the actual like scent is in here, and you can take it out if you wanted to like take it out for whatever reason to see how much you have left. So handy. So to get into the scents that I have Unconquered by Catherine Malandrino, which has mandarin orange, bergamot waters, coconut milk, warm amber, and white musks for its notes. Next I have Just Bloom, which is Story Venezian by Valmont. This is Lily of the Valley, gardenia, and ambergris. This isn't something that I would normally go for, but I do actually really like it. It's more floral than I would go for, but I do enjoy it a lot. And this is something like I was able to try it out. I also have Cabin Retreat by Memoir Archives. I felt like this was perfect for like this time of year, and it has notes of Atlas, cedarwood, oak moss, and sandalwood. And then the final scent that I have is Maximalist by Deck of Scarlet. This has notes of crisp pear, sparkling bergamot, silky jasmine, amber woods, and whipped vanilla. So yeah, a lot of really fun fragrances, a lot of different things, and I can definitely switch it up, and I do love switching it up. So if you guys are interested in checking out Scentbird, they have an awesome offer for you. So if you click the link down below and also use my code, which I will have on the screen for you guys, you can get 55% off of your first month of Scentbird. So that ends up being like only $8 for your fragrances for the first month. I also have exciting news for Canadians. Scentbird is now available in Canada too. Yay! We love when things make their way across the border. But thank you so much to Scentbird for sponsoring today's video and supporting my channel by doing so. Definitely check them out if you're interested in the link down below. And I hope you enjoy. I hope you find a good fragrance for you. Let me know if you do, because I'm always looking to try something new. So in no particular order, the first book that I read that I have kind of seen everywhere, and that's the reason that I picked this book up, is Before the Coffee Gets Cold, and this is by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, and I'm not sure who the translator is, but this book is originally written in Japanese. Oh, it's translated by Jeffrey Tresselot? Sorry, I wasn't sure if that was a T. Tresselot is what it is. But this is very different, definitely, than anything that I have normally read. So it's about this cafe, and at this cafe you can go and you can travel in time. So there's like a lot of rules surrounding it and everything, and that is what this book is following. You have a character who is going there and like asking about this. So there's kind of a magical element to it. And I did really enjoy this one. It is kind of like a feel-good sort of read. At the same time, it can be kind of sad, but definitely overall, I think it is just a heartwarming book. But I feel like it does have like, I feel like maybe the translation suffers a little bit because the balance between showing and telling wasn't there for me. Like, you are told basically everything that's happening. You don't really get shown a lot. It's very much like telling you and very much instructional, if that makes any sense. However, I felt like the concept was really interesting, and I know that there is actually a sequel, so maybe I'll pick that up. I don't really know, but I felt like each of the stories, because it's 3 different stories that you have at this cafe. I felt like each of the stories stood well on their own, but they also kind of like tied everything together. So I read this super quickly. I read this in a day because I couldn't put it down, because I just wanted to know, like, as much as it was kind of like telling you everything, you also had to piece together, like, why is it like this? Like, what is happening? And a lot of answers you don't get, but at the same time, like, it was kind of the thrill of the chase there a little bit. So I enjoyed that each of the stories were very different. They all followed kind of different characters, different periods of life. So there's 4 actually, sorry. So the lovers is the first story, and then we have husband and wife, the sisters, and then mother and child. So it's kind of following like a lot of different relationships and why you might want to travel in time because of that. And I just felt like it was a really well done book. Like, I still kind of am like, I don't fully understand why it's as hyped up as it is. I think maybe the interesting concept or what, but yeah, it was definitely an interesting read. So next is another book that is so far out of my comfort zone, and I might still include this in a vlog because originally my plan was to do like a sad girl reading vlog with all the sad girl books, and then I picked up what I feel like is the ultimate sad girl book, but I ended up finishing it in like a morning, which was so unexpected for me because I feel like a sad girl book, like, there's a lot of emotion there or whatever. I did not expect to finish this as quickly as I did, but I completely flew through it, and that was My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Mosh Fei. This, I think, is honestly like the ultimate sad girl book. So many people reading this book, and it's kind of that like sad girl aesthetic. Definitely that is why people are reading this. So if you still would like me to do that vlog, definitely let me know and leave some recommendations down below. I kind of have some ideas of what I might read for it, but unfortunately, like, I literally started the vlog and then I finished this, so I was like, well, I guess that's that, because I just got so sucked into it that I couldn't stop. And I don't know why, because like, the book isn't particularly enjoyable. Like, the main character is really annoying, and she's not exactly a likable main character. She's very selfish. But if you haven't heard of this book before, it's really weird. It's very strange. It is about a character who has just been through a breakup with like her Wall Street boyfriend, and she kind of had like an interesting family life. She definitely is coming from a place of privilege in terms of like financially, she's doing really well in everything, but she has an interesting outlook on things. So she decides that she is going to take drugs to sleep an entire year, just to sleep. And I would say relatable, because like, sleeping for an entire year does sound amazing in some circumstances. At the same time, like, as someone who has been depressed, sleeping for a year sounds amazing. But she goes to this psychiatrist who is awful, god awful, just so bad, and yeah, just gives her all these different drugs and everything, and she's trying with all these different things, like mixing stuff up. Like, it's just, there's so much happening in this book. So this definitely, like, this is an adult book. I would not recommend this for a younger audience. There is a lot of drug abuse happening in it, but it's not like a story where it's like encouraging you to do this, for sure. But honestly, I don't even know how to describe my thoughts or feelings on this book, because like, I don't I don't know. Like, the blurb on the cover said that it was a deep pleasure to read, and like, I can't say that I relate to that, and it's not that I didn't enjoy it, I don't know, this was so completely far out of my comfort zone. Like, I don't even know. I will say, this seems like the kind of book, like, when I was an English major, people love Sylvia Plath, and I think Sylvia Plath is fine, but like, people like love Sylvia Plath, and I'm like, okay, like, it's fine. But I feel like those kinds of people who love Sylvia Plath would love this book. It's the angst, it's the like, just emotion, I don't know. It's just, yeah, this book I read because before my sister's wedding, I didn't want to start anything too big. I didn't want to start anything that was going to take like a really long time. And I was like, well, this should be like a relatively quick read. Did not expect to finish it as quickly as I did, but I was like, maybe a couple of days, like 2-3 days, but no, flew through it. So at least there's that. I don't think I'll read, the most recent book by this author is Lapvona, I believe what it is. I don't think I'll read that. I don't think it really appeals to me, but like, this one was definitely a really interesting reading experience, and I don't regret having read it, but definitely weird. I kind of forgot about the hype piece for this book, but regarding the hype for this book, I feel like I understand why it's so hyped up, because it is so weird and just so like out there, and definitely a character that would get a lot of people talking, and it fully like I said, people love Sylvia Plath, so I can understand why this would be really hyped up, because it kind of the vibe of it overall definitely reminds me of that. Next is Nora Goes Off Script by Annabelle Monaghan. So this author, I guess, actually originally wrote some YA books. I've never read them, nor have I heard of them, to be honest, but this book I felt like seemed like it could be pretty interesting, and I believe this one was also blurbed. It was blurbed by a couple of authors that I've read before. So I kind of like, this one is kind of a romance book, but at the same time I feel like it's more like women's literature, or whatever you want to call that category. So that's why I included it in this video rather than the other one. But this is about a character who has been through divorce. Like, she is on her own raising her 2 kids, and then she ends up writing the script. She's actually a romance script, kind of like Hallmark movie script writer, and she ends up writing a script that ends up selling for a lot of money, and ends up making like this movie that it's not a Hallmark movie. It's actually the story of the breakdown of her relationship with her ex, and how she kind of like overcame that. So this celebrity, who's a really well-known celebrity, he ends up being cast to, actually both of the main characters are like huge superstars, and they come to her house to film, and he ends up deciding that he's not going to leave. He's like going through some stuff, so then he ends up getting involved with her, and it's kind of their relationship and everything. And I kind of have mixed feelings on this one. I did like it. I liked a lot of parts of it, but then there were certain parts that I kind of got frustrated by and I didn't really understand, and I felt like I was missing something a little bit. So as things kind of started to like fall apart, as we hit kind of like the climax of it, it was like, I don't think I really understand like why this happened, and maybe I was missing something. Maybe there were some subtleties that were getting a little bit lost to me, but overall I felt like I liked the main character, and like her relationship with her kids and everything, and her attitude toward her ex. Like, I felt like she was really moving on from that, and it was definitely like a really emotional story, watching her go through all of those things and how she had been treated, and moving on past that, and then watching her like come to trust someone again and have a relationship again. And I haven't really read all that many books that deal with divorce or breakups or anything like that, and I haven't read anything that deals with the film industry so like prominently in the writing side of it. Like, it did kind of make me think a little bit of the book that I read the month before that I talked about in my last recent reads video, How to Fake It in Hollywood, but this is definitely more of the like literature version of that, if you will. But yeah, I did like this one. I've kind of seen this one like hyped up some places, and I can see why people would enjoy it. I think that the writing didn't always click with me. I wasn't a huge fan of the writing, and there was a specific reason why, but I honestly can't remember. It's just a very strange writing style that doesn't always mesh with me. And I've definitely read other books that have a similar writing style to it, and I'm just kind of like meh, but it almost reads like a run-on sentence, if that makes sense. I don't know if I can explain it very well, but that's kind of the vibes that I get from it. And it's not my favorite, but like I don't hate it. Next is One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle. This book has been getting a lot of hype, and I feel like even the author's last book in 5 years got a ton of hype. And this is another author that actually wrote a YA book before, and I haven't read it yet, but I did after reading this one. I ended up going to pick up In 5 Years. My sister read In 5 Years. I was sent a copy and I gave it to her. Now I kind of regret it, but it's okay. So I saw this one and I was like, ooh, Italy, like the cover totally drew me in. So I ended up buying this one as part of that video that I did where I was like out of my comfort zone book shopping. And I did read it, and I partially listened to the audiobook because this is kind of a Gilmore Girls-esque story. And I saw that the audiobook on Scribd is narrated by Lauren Graham, and I was like, amazing. So I listened to some of it as well, and that was an enjoyable experience too. But this kind of has a magical element that I struggled with some elements to it. As much as I say like I really loved this one, there definitely were some issues that I had with it. I understand why it's so hyped up. I definitely like think it is worth the read, but there definitely were a couple of things that I was like a little bit meh about. So it's about a girl who her mother has just died, and she was really close with her mother, so she's obviously struggling with that. And then she ends up going to Italy on this trip that she was supposed to take with her mother. Her mother went to Italy when she was younger and had this amazing trip she used to talk about all the time. So she planned a trip for the two of them and ended up like actually taking that trip by herself because her mother passed away from cancer at the beginning of the book. So definitely a lot of grief here, but the kind of magical element is that she goes there and she like finds her mother as her mother was when she like described that trip. So she's trying to figure out what's happening there, obviously, but it's definitely a really transformative period for the character as she's going through this grief. And she is married, but she thinks she's settling, so she's kind of cut her husband out of things, and she's trying to figure out who she is on her own without her mother. So definitely the transformation and the grief of this book was really like vibrant isn't the right word, but at the same time it kind of is. And I loved the setting of Italy. I felt like the setting was so completely well done, and it totally transported me there. And it definitely was a book that like I couldn't put down. I kept on flipping the pages to see what was going to happen with these characters and trying to figure out like, how is this possible? Like, how is she seeing her mother? And I'm very, very close with my mother. I'm very close with my family. So as someone who's really close with my mom, like reading about someone who had lost her mom and the struggle of that, like it was definitely something that I could relate to. It definitely was something that made me emotional because I can't even imagine that. So I feel like this is a book that dealt with love. Like there was a romance plot line, but it kind of took a backseat to the main character's transformation and also her self-love and her relationship with her mother now that she's passed. And I felt like that was a really interesting thing. So yeah, I did really enjoy this one. I felt like it was really good, and I understand why people are talking about it a lot. Next, we have a book that if you follow me on Instagram or TikTok, you probably know that I loved this one already, but it is Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I loved this, okay? Like, I'm not even gonna lie, this was really hyped up, and I love Childhood Friends to Lovers. It is my favorite. This is literally like The Summer I Turned Pretty, but like the grown-up version. I also like, it helps that this book is actually set in cottage country Canada, which is really exciting. So it's set around Toronto and kind of cottage country out there, and I thought that was a lot of fun. I'm such a sucker for Childhood Friends to Lovers, and this gave me all of that and more. Loved it. Such a big fan. I'm probably going to do a recommendations video very soon, specifically focused on Childhood Friends to Lovers book recommendations. So if you'd be interested in that, definitely let me know, but also subscribe so you won't miss it. But yeah, this was just such a pleasure to read. I flew through it because I couldn't stop reading it. I was just so like happy to read the second chance romance, Childhood Friends to Lovers sort of thing, and it just was everything that I wanted and more. And I felt like I was going to love it, and I ended up loving it like even more than I had thought that I would. And Emily Henry blurbed this one, so that definitely like drew me in, and it didn't disappoint in my opinion. I was a really big fan of it. So I can see like some critiques, but I think overall I just had such a good time reading the story that I forget all of them. It was just so much fun. You have brothers, you have a main character who she's going back to cottage country, which she hasn't been to in a really long time. She used to go every summer, meet up with these boys, and she of course fell in love with the one, and then they haven't seen each other. There was this whole huge thing that happened. So then they just like haven't talked, and now they're actually seeing each other again, and it's just like all the emotions that are surfacing from that and everything, and it's just a really good book. So I'm excited for more from this author. Next is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Of course, Taylor Jenkins Reid, very well known. I actually have Carrie Soto Is Back over here, but Carrie Soto Is Back is the latest by her, and there's a character, Carrie Soto, in this book that Carrie Soto is about, obviously. I couldn't have explained that like more of an idiot, but because of that, I really wanted to read Malibu Rising. And I kind of like, I really enjoy some of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books, but sometimes I feel like my expectations are so high that it's hard to meet them. Daisy Jones is still my favorite, and then I would say it's probably Evelyn Hugo, and then this one. This one was really interesting. Like, she has a great way of writing about characters that makes them feel real. Like, it feels like these are actual real like celebrity people that you're reading about, and she does focus on celebrities for most of her recent books, and I think she just does it incredibly well, and this one was no exception. Like, I did really like it, and you're following these kids, and they are like famous kids, and it's set in Malibu in 1983, and there's like this end of summer party that's happening, and it's kind of like going back and forth between past and present and building up to this party and everything that happens there. So there definitely is like a lot happening in this book, but I feel like overall from all of the books, and I've only read 2 others, but this was kind of the most forgettable for me. It was really interesting, but I felt like Carrie Soto honestly was like one of the most intriguing characters in it. Even though she had such a minor role, I was definitely intrigued to read more. So I liked this one, but I'm definitely really looking forward to reading Carrie Soto Is Back, because I think that she seems like such an intriguing character to have at the center of a story, because I haven't really read many main characters like that before. So this one was just like okay for me. And I don't want to say it's a bad thing, it's just kind of like I've read so many books that I'm kind of like, this one is one of the ones that kind of gets lost through the cracks. Next is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. So this has been super hyped up with the movie coming out, and I haven't actually seen the movie yet, but I did listen to the audiobook for this one because there's like a certain vernacular and dialect to the story that I really wanted to listen to the audiobook for, because it's not something that I'm like that familiar or comfortable with, and I felt like that did bring the story to life for me. But I had heard so many amazing things about this book, and it just kind of like was okay for me. I don't know, I felt like so many people have really loved it, so my expectations were maybe a little bit higher. Like, I think it was really interesting, but I think maybe I had a hard time kind of picturing things or bringing things to life. So I think seeing the movie might help me a little bit with that. But I liked the fact that I was dealing with a character who was like so in tune with the natural world, and then the way that she progressed throughout the story and the kind of romance plot line there. Also, like, a lot of really sad things happened in the story as well, but it just kind of, there was something missing from it. I can't even really describe what it was, but there was just like kind of a little something that I would have liked to be different. I really can't pinpoint it, but just kind of a little something was missing. But yeah, like, I felt like this was a solid read. I don't regret having read it. There were kind of some parts that made me a little bit uncomfortable, but overall I felt like it was like a good book. It's just my expectations were like here, and it ended up being like here. And the final book is the one that's not really hyped up, but I still wanted to mention it because I've read it, and this is kind of the only video that I've fit in. So that is Songs in Ursa Major by Emma Brody. So this would definitely appeal to fans of Daisy Jones and the Six, because it's kind of like about a band, and well, it's actually about an individual singer joins with this other singer and everything, and it's set in the summer of 1969. So definitely like something that would appeal to fans of Daisy Jones, and obviously those parallels are going to be drawn. But I felt like if you didn't like the format of Daisy Jones, which didn't really mesh with a lot of people, which is totally fine, you might like this one because it's actually like a prose format rather than this interview format. I did really enjoy this one. I felt like the one thing it could have done better was like really bring me to that time period, bring me to 1969, because I felt like there were certain things that it didn't really bring me to the time period so much. However, I loved the music plotline. We have another story where it's dealing with like females in music, or females in like a Hollywood sort of music setting, and not really being taken seriously. And I felt for the main character and all the struggles she was going through, and like her relationship struggles as well, because as you would expect with the story set in this time period, it's kind of like sex, drugs, rock and roll and everything, and the things that kind of come with that, and like the drama that comes with that. And yeah, I definitely felt for the character just wanting to like play her music and share it with the world, and being really guarded, and then finally letting her guard down, and then like kind of paying for it in the end. But I did feel like this was a really well done story. I just, like I said, I wish if there's anything it could have done better was definitely kind of bringing me more to that time period. Okay, so those are all of the kind of like hyped up books that I have read recently. Please let me know your thoughts on them if you have read any of them, and I will see you guys in another new video soon. Bye!